Welcome to the Kendo and Aido Italia podcast in this English language version. Enjoy listening.
Thank you for sharing our passion by staying with us on this new episode of Kendo and Aido Italy.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are grabbing our bamboo swords and strapping on the protective gear. We're going to be plunging into the really, really intricate rule set of Kendo.
We are.
I mean, if you've ever been curious about this incredible modern Japanese martial art, it's so rooted in traditional samurai swordsmanship. You know, it just looks fast, disciplined, and honestly, a little mystifying.
It is exactly that, and that's really why we're here today. Our mission is to take you beyond just the visible speed, which, I mean, can be a strike in 1/10 of a second.
Wow.
And show you what it really takes to satisfy the judges and score just a single point. And Ipon, Kendo is it's pretty unique because scoring isn't just about contact. It's about proving your technique, your mental presence, and your spirit are all perfectly synchronized.
That sounds like a tall order. So we're dealing with a sport where the goal is, on the surface, pretty straightforward. Score more points than your opponent with the shinai, that bamboo sword.
Right.
But the judges are demanding, perfection under pressure. Let's start with the basics of how a match even begins.
Okay, so when the two competitors enter the shiai-jo, that's the competition area, the formality kicks in immediately. I mean, before a single blow is struck, they perform this deep bow to their opponent.
A sign of respect.
Total respect. Then they move to the starting lines, crouch down into a position of readiness, and the action only begins when the referee gives the signal.
And once that action starts, they're aiming for 4 very specific legal target areas on the protective armor, the bogu. So what are those 4 scoreable targets?
Well, there are 4 main areas you have to strike. The first, and probably the most common, is men. That covers the head and the upper face protection.
Okay, the head.
Next up is kote, which is the glove protecting the wrists. It's often a target when an opponent's guard just drops a little bit.
Right.
Then you've got do, which is the armor covering the torso, the abdomen. And finally, there's tuki, or ski. That's the highly specialized thrust that targets the throat protector.
Suki's fascinating to me because a thrust is just inherently riskier than a cutting strike. Does that target carry any, extra weight with the judges because it's aimed right at the throat?
Absolutely, yeah. While technically it still just scores one upon like the others, it requires extraordinary precision. A lot of dojos even prohibit beginners from practicing it because of the danger. It demands perfect timing, perfect center line control. It's, let's say, a lower frequency score, which automatically suggests a higher level of mastery.
So if you manage a clean strike on any of those 4 areas, men, kote, do, or tsuki, faster and better than your opponent, that's 1 Ipon, 1 point. How long is a typical match?
A standard Kendo match is usually a single 10-minute period, and victory is the best of 3 Ipon. So if you score 2 points, the match just ends right there. You win.
And if a clock runs out?
If the clock runs down and you're up 1 elo, you win. This focus on just a few points means every single attack is critical. Patience is, it's just essential.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me and where Kendo just completely separates itself from, say, fencing or just hitting a mark. You said contact isn't enough.
Not even close.
We're talking about this standard summarized by the phrase Ki Ken Tai, spirit, sword, and body, and then a 4th piece, Zanshin.
This is the absolute essence of why Kendo is called the way of the sword and not just the sport of the stick. To get a valid Ipon, those 3 elements, Ki Ken Tai, they have to converge at the exact moment of the strike.
Let's delve into that. Start with ki, or spirit. How on earth do judges quantify the spirit of an attack?
Ki is mainly expressed through the kai. That's the loud, sharp shout that goes with the attack. And it is absolutely mandatory.
Fire shout, no point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this isn't just yelling. The quality of the kai is crucial. It has to demonstrate conviction, focus, a committed, non-hesitant intent. A weak or, a late kai can nullify an otherwise perfect physical strike.
So it's not just a box to check. The kai is like an audible window into the competitor's mental state. It's proof that the attack was launched with a single, clear mind.
Precisely. It proves the fighter has achieved what's called fudoshin, the immovable mind, at that moment of contact. So next we have ken, the technical requirements for the sword. This is where the precision gets kind of astonishing.
Well, we already mentioned the 1/10 of a second speed, but now you're adding geometry to it.
We are. First, the orientation of the sword matters. The shinai has a string running along one side, which represents the back or the dull edge of a real katana.
All right.
When you strike, that string has to be on top. This shows that you struck with the intended cutting edge of the blade, honoring the physics of swordsmanship. If the string is facing down, it's like hitting with the flat of the blade. The point is canceled.
That is a remarkable link back to the katana. It forces competitors to show not just contact, but proper cutting technique. What about that specific 25-centimeter sweet spot you mentioned?
Right, that zone, 25 centimeters from the tip, is called the datotsubu. And there's a functional reason for this. On a real sword, this area is the minushi, which is the ideal part of the blade for cutting force and control. So if you hit too close to the handle, the strike lacks commitment. If you just hit with a very tip, it lacks force. That 25-centimeter zone signifies effective technique and committed power.
That detail is so helpful. It grounds the rules in practical martial arts physics, not just some arbitrary constraint. So we have ki, spirit, and ken, sword. That brings us to tai, the body.
Kai is all about posture and movement. When you deliver the strike, your body has to stay straight, balanced. Critically, both hands must remain on the sword. If your momentum throws you off balance, if you stumble, or if you even slightly release the sword, the Ipon is invalid.
Instantly.
The attack has to conclude with a smooth, powerful forward step. Usually the front foot lands just a fraction of a second after the shinai makes contact.
So the body has to support the technique, showing the strike was controlled and generated from your whole body, not just flailing with your arms.
Exactly. Without proper tai, the strike is considered reckless or, purely accidental. And now we get to the final layer, and maybe the most unique one, Zanshin.
If Ki Ken Tai is that perfect explosion of an attack, Zanshin is what comes after. What is this crucial fourth component? How do you even show it?
Zanshin literally means remaining mind or sustained alertness. It's the mental and physical requirement to maintain awareness and readiness to respond immediately after scoring. You have to be prepared for a counterattack or to launch another one for the whole 10 minutes. You just cannot drop your guard.
That requirement seems to completely flip the mental script of competition. In most sports, the whistle blows, the goal is scored, and the pressure immediately drops for a second.
Right, you celebrate.
Yeah, but Kendo demands continuous peak mental engagement.
And this is where we see some of the most memorable rulings. There's that well-known anecdote from our source material. The fighter who landed a perfect Ipon met all the Ki Ken Tai criteria, but then, for a split second, he pumped his fist in triumph.
Just a little fist pump, and that little moment of celebration cost him the point.
It did. The referee canceled the score instantly. That gesture showed a clear break in Zanshin. He stopped being alert, and it also showed a lack of respect reigi for his opponent. It implies the opponent is totally defeated. The rules prioritize readiness and discipline over just physical skill.
That deepens the context so much. So the victory has to be earned not just with skill, but with this unwavering discipline. With all this nuance, the spirit, that 25-centimeter sweet spot, the posture, Zanshin, the officiating, must be incredibly robust.
It absolutely is. Kendo uses 3 referees on the floor to manage all this. Fighters wear either a red or a white indicator on their back, and the 3 judges each hold corresponding red and white flags.
So it's a consensus system then. How many judges have to agree before an Ipon is actually awarded?
At least 2 of the 3 judges have to raise the flag for that fighter's color. This 2/3 majority is critical because, honestly, these elements are so fleeting, the timing of the kai, the striking angle, that you almost need triangulation to confirm it was a valid Ipon. They're looking for what's called yuko datotsu, an effective strike.
Meaning all those things we just talked about were met.
Every single one.
That really emphasizes how difficult their job is. Okay, so shifting to the format. Most of these are individual elimination matches in a tournament, right?
Yes. The individual sudden death tournament format is the most common. But what happens when that 10-minute clock runs out and the scores are tied, say 0-0 or 1-1? This is where the tiebreakers get fascinating.
Right. In a tournament, you have to have a winner. So what are the possibilities?
There are 3 main options, depending on the tournament. The most common and most exciting is Enko sudden death. The contest just keeps going, no time limit, until one fighter scores a single valid Ipon.
The pressure must be immense.
Oh, it's incredible. And it puts that Zanshin requirement under a huge psychological strain. You could be fighting for another minute or another 30.
Wow. What are the other options?
Well, in some lesser rounds or leagues, the match might just be declared a draw. But in major tournaments, if time expires and it's tied, sometimes the 3 judges will actually enter a deliberation.
They deliberate and then decide who was the, quote, superior fighter. What criteria are they even using for a decision that subjective?
This is the moment where the spirit of Kendo really shines. When judges decide, they are looking beyond just contact. They assess reigi etiquette and discipline aggressiveness, posture, the commitment of attacks, really the overall display of mental presence. They're deciding which fighter was closer to embodying the complete ideal of the swordsman.
Even if that person didn't land the points.
Even then, they award the victory to the one who demonstrated the highest degree of technical and moral completeness.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what stands out is this paradox. Kendo is a sport fought at inhuman speeds, but its scoring is so meticulously slow, demanding this ethical and spiritual completion.
What's fascinating is that the scoring system is fundamentally a test of character. The criteria of Ki Ken Tai, the spirit, technique, body control, are all steps toward achieving that higher ideal of Zanshin. The rules ensure the legacy of the samurai, which prioritize preparedness and respect above all, is maintained.
So Kendo is less of a sport and more of a philosophy in motion. If we summarize the core takeaway, it's this perfect synchronization of physical speed, those 110th of a second attacks, with technical precision, like hitting that 25-centimeter spot, and this immense mental discipline through the shinai, and that unbroken alertness, Zanshin.
It's a profound lesson in how focus has to extend beyond the moment of success.
So here's a final provocative thought for you, our listener. Considering the strict requirement for Zanshin, that constant, unbroken mental alertness after the decisive action, how much does this change the way you might view other high-speed sports? What other athletic endeavors require complete mental engagement long after the point is scored? And what would happen if a moment of celebration canceled a world record? Required outer clip start. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to visit our social media channels, and maybe if you enjoyed this episode, give it a like. Thanks again, and see you next time.
Thank you for listening to this podcast.
Kendo Italia, il podcast.